Was St. Paul's death in the night of the Spirit? Was it the night of the Spirit? This is a total absence of an enlightened situation with its soul of dark distress. We can read the night of the Spirit if we study the trial of Joan of Arc, or rather her rehabilitation trial, where her death is foretold. It is foretold how in her prison for several months the voices that enlightened her with their graces, Sainte Marguerite, no longer had appeared to her. She was left to her prison in front of her executioners, who by all possible contrived trickery had tried to trick her in order to kill her. She was only 21 years old when she had died because of the cunning of a bishop, absolutely unstoppably cunning. He succeeded in burning her at the stake. There are two ways to look upon this type of the death of the saints, the apostles, and perhaps also the death of St. Paul. A way which consists of saying they do not have the presence of God. It is so as they had sinned, they moved away from God, and then from a Catholic angle which illustrates that it is not faith alone that saves. Faith is the beginning of the salvation, but it continues after a long journey of purification because Christ desires to give us, supported upon this faith, a reciprocal love which must be purified, therefore initially full of pleasures, successes, and it is the graces that are exercised by St. Paul. And then at some point later on in everyday life, they are done. We lose the pleasure of the presence of God. This is called the night of the senses. This night of the senses makes it possible to love God for himself and no longer for his pleasures. You could say that it is sufficient purification. No, because in order to see God face to face, you need to possess a total humble heart, someone who has known misery and who has no illusions about himself. This is what occurred to St. Paul. Asked to be tried in Rome, and therefore he had been sent to Rome. When he arrived in Rome, he had been thrown into prison. We don't know anything about his last moments, but when we look at the lives of such saints who are similar to him, like Saint Francis Xavier, we may well tell ourselves that certainly in these last moments, the Holy Spirit had hidden his presence. He lived in anguish, in total darkness of spirit, and then finally Nero's persecution took place, and because he had been a Christian among the others, he wanted to defend himself. He was condemned simply to be beheaded because as a Roman citizen he could not have been crucified. It had been an apparently shabby death, without trial, without the possibility of proclaiming one's faith. It had been simply a death among thousands of others. This is how St. Paul perished. But beware, beyond this appearance of banalities and misery, a great saint came out of it, because having arrived alive after his decapitation, along the other side of death's passage, his heart had been without any illusion of himself, and he saw again face to face Jesus Christ, who had appeared to him perhaps 30 years earlier on the road of Damascus. He had recognized him, and Christ uplifted him. He had been repentant, for he had sinned, but Christ said to him, "You have served well, Paul. Enter into the joy of your master." So we clearly see there is a judgment in the end of the apostles upon the acts of the apostles, from a Catholic theology which, far from criticizing their miserable death, understands that in fact it is the final education of God concerning their soul,